There you go.
Yep, it's working. Good morning. Thank you for being with us this morning. We are going to be talking about channeling, what it is, what it isn't, and what really matters at the end of the day. So we had a little look into channeling and the word channeling, because it's interesting how it gets used these days. And what we decided, or what we found, was that channeling, that word became very popular in the 60s and 70s, following the publication of the Seth material that was channeled by Jane Roberts. And that word has really become interchangeable with states and work that we used to describe as mediumship. And the internet agreed with us that that is the case. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean the internet's right, but when we hear about people channeling these days, we often hear people describe it, and it sort of sounds like, well, they could be talking about trance work, or it sort of sounds like they might be working with spirit people and whatever. So the word these days is incredibly interchangeable. We use it more specifically, and we're going to come to that in a moment. But that's what we're going to talk about now. We do have a long list of questions as well that we've kind of gathered from around various social media platforms that are asking questions and advice about channeling and all different aspects of it. So we'll come to them as well. But if you have questions yourself about channeling and want to ask us, then just type it into the little box that side, and we will answer those questions as best as we can. Okay, so it's good morning. We can see you there as well. So you want to talk about what we see all over the internet about channeling these days? You want to talk about that?
I think there's a lot of confusion about what channeling is, and people have interlaced channeling with mediumship. And why does it matter? Well, because mediumship requires that there's some certain level of training and a level of strictness, if I can use that word, in regards to development. Mediumship requires that you understand that you've got a spirit guide, that you've got that you may be moving into trance states as well, or if you're a mental medium, moving into the clairaudience type sort of scenarios. And so what we realise is that as we're moving through these different definitions, there's some connotations for those definitions as well. So channeling to me is just when somebody's channeling their inner thoughts or their inspirational thoughts. And often you can do inspirational speaking as well. And so someone might give you a subject to speak on, and then you just start speaking about it. You can be in a lovely, relaxed state while you do it as well. And then that's just internally, that's just your process that takes place. The moment that you step outside of that and there's anything external to you, that's no longer channeling.
A lot of people, when they start channeling, and we don't teach channeling per se, but as part of a process, a much longer process, we might start off with that. And a lot of people are surprised at what comes out. And their first reaction is, that can't have been me that said that, right? What's going on there?
Well, it's so difficult to put words to this process, because ultimately your consciousness, and where your consciousness is linked to, can also be a way for you to give inspirational information. You can be connected to, your wise part of yourself,
the wise mind.
The wise mind, or you can be connected to the totality of who you are, and that totality exists as an observer. Firstly, you observe everything that you do around yourself, or you can do the internal process as well of your own consciousness. Not that there's any separation in them at all, but that can definitely be one of the reasons why.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to talk about what we gathered there?
Well, there's a couple of types of channeling. I'm just going to grab my laptop because it's too many notes. Basically, this is what people believe is channeling these days. Okay, and as I said, there's ramifications to having these belief systems. So people believe that your consciousness, the first one is where you're channeling and your consciousness steps aside, or is even present, and then there's just words flowing through you. That's the first one. There's another one where you can just be consciously channeling. So you are connected to yourself in meditation and you're just speaking to yourself, inspirational speaking. The next type of channeling is automatic writing or typing. So that's another one as well, because it could be coming internally. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit blurry, because you could be what's called in an overshadowed state. And that's where there might be a spirit standing with you, and they're influencing some of the words that you're saying, some of the way that you're feeling, some of the emotions, and that you would then be writing those things down. That's automatic writing. Then, of course, we move through to sort of spirit channeling and all the rest of it. But there could also be interdimensional or extraterrestrial channeling. I would suggest that that's no longer channeling. If that's what's happening, it's not channeling anymore. Channeling's gone completely out the window, and you're in contact with something else. There's also nature and elemental or angelic channeling as well. Now, all those things that I just mentioned, the three of them, they're not you. They're external to you. So although you might be interacting with those energies, you're actually interacting with a consciousness, and possibly even a personality. And then the other one is what's called inspirational speaking by percentages. In a book written by Silver Birch, he talks about how often the spirit that's speaking through the medium will be carried away with the onrush of the medium's thoughts. And so maybe 1 in 10 words is the medium's, but the other 9 are the spirit person's. And so that's why it's really important to understand, am I channeling or am I actually moving through mediumship? Now, mediumship, is there anything you wanted to say in regards to
that? Just to, I guess, say that we class channeling as when you are working with yourself, that you are not working with an external consciousness to yourself. Now, whether that's spirit or extraterrestrial or interdimensional, or put your word to it, we regard channeling as a self process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question there is have you heard people speaking in light languages?
Have I heard of it? Absolutely. Have I seen somebody do it? Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah, I have as well. So,
yeah.
So
do we want to say anything else about that right now, or do we want to?
No, it's okay. Remember that speaking in other languages and tongues is a biblical event.
So when it is,
when it is, according to the Bible. So
yeah,
generally the Holy Spirit comes and people are taken over and speak in different languages. Those languages are not known to the person, and they may not be any language that's being constructed on this planet. And generally with the speaking in tongues, basically what happens is the words that are being said are set at a level where there's a level of connection back to the Godhead or to Source, right? But the person that's speaking them doesn't know what the words are.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first thing. The thing about some of the light languages is that you just need to try to evidence, if you can, where that information's coming from. What does it make? How does it make you feel? What does it make the people feel that are listening to it as well? Because it could easily be spirits.
Could be.
It could be spirits. It could be lots of other things. So,
Yeah.
or some astral forms and whatever. So we don't really know. Often when someone's talking in these languages, it's very difficult to know what is the source of that. And as mediums, we're trained to be evidential, and so we prefer to stay, in that sort of more evidential space.
Yeah. So where does channeling fit into our sort of scale of mediumship, if you want to call it that?
Well, I think it's just for beginners. Channeling is for beginners. It's when you are not comfortable with the fact that you've experienced something that's probably more than your normal level of consciousness. It's you having to, and to say this, if you have a look up about channeling, the same rules apply to mediumship. That if you're channeling by yourself really is not really worth it. Channeling should be where you're sitting with somebody or as a secondary person, and it may be that the person's asking questions of the person who's channeling, and that person's giving an inspired response. That's a very, very safe space for a person who's channeling, because the person that's asking the question can actually look at the person and listen and understand what's being said, and sort of gauge in their own mind how much of that is that person speaking and how much of it could be something else.
Yeah. So to be clear, we're not dismissing channeling.
No.
We're just trying to place it in its correct.
Yeah. If you're doing anything other than so next thing there's a spirit person with you, that's no longer channeling. That's gone completely out the window.
Yeah.
Now you're moving into what's called overshadowing.
Yeah.
Or you're doing mediumship, or you're doing mental mediumship, or trance mediumship, or deep trance mediumship. Now, deep trance mediumship is basically what's called physical and uses ectoplasm. And that's at the extreme end of, so channeling here all the way through all the different things. Now, often you'll see mental mediums. They interact with spirits, and they might have your grandmother come, and your grandmother gives all this information, and you can verify that, so that's evidential. Also, with trance mediumship, a spirit comes through and they show their face through transfiguration as well in red light, and then also may try to speak on some level, especially if they can control them, the medium's voice, the vocal cords as well. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And so with sort of psychic work, or if you want to call it that, because there's always that psychic stuff. So are all mediums psychic? Yes, but are all psychics mediums? No, not always.
What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that a person could be psychic, and that they pick up energy. So they might do things like tarot card reading, oracle cards, pendulums, numerology. They could do psychometry. They're reading energy.
Where is that energy?
Where is that energy?
That the psychic is reading.
Well, it's in the etheric body of the item.
Yeah.
Right.
Or the person.
So
you can go see a psychic for a psychic reading. They're reading the energy within your etheric field. Not the same as working with a spirit person. The spirit person's giving them information. The energy within your etheric field contains what's gone on in the past. It contains what's going on in the present. It might contain a tiny bit of the very near future, but it's probably not going to contain information about your nan or your granddad.
Psychic work also can be aura reading. I suppose Reiki on some level is also, but I also see Reiki as a flow of healing energy coming from a specific frequency. Because we both do Reiki as well. So, the other thing is with psychic work, you can basically, do cord cutting, there's some connection between yourself and another person, and what you do is basically go into an altered state, maybe, and then you check your own energetic body, and maybe it needs to be sort of cleared, or you need to shift your frequency, and we call that using the sphere technique.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's a couple of questions there. So Trisha is asking, so the channeler has free will over the information they give from the self or the external entities? Well, we're saying channeling in the truest sense of the word is not working with an external consciousness. So a channeler is working with themselves, whether it's a conscious part of them or a subconscious part or the wise mind. They are working with themselves. The second another being or consciousness is involved, that process has moved into something else. It's evolved into maybe spirit mediumship or whatever. But it's channeling is working with your own self. Yeah.
Anala says, I asked a pendulum if it would work with me, and it gave me a resounding no.
So here's the question. Can a crystal, I'm assuming it's a crystal pendulum, it might not have been, but can the pendulum say no? Or is there an energy that's influencing that pendulum? Where did that no really come from? Could it have come from you because you actually doubt the process subconsciously? That will never happen. And that energy is coming through to the pendulum. Did a spirit person affect the pendulum?
Yeah.
Did another being affect the pendulum? Or was it just your blood flow, probably minute body movement and all of that? Pendulums are, you've got to take it carefully with them.
Pendulum stuff's really good if you know the spirit. If
There's
a spirit that's using the pendulum,
yeah,
you can get the pendulum to do some really weird things, and it's great.
Yeah.
And I think with working with spirits can be a very humorous thing as well.
As long as it's evident.
As long as it's evident. Yeah. So spirits, like they were when they're alive, they've got some of them have a great personality, and they like to also not be serious all the time either.
Yeah.
And if they get a chance to sort of play around a bit, like with a pendulum or whatever.
Can you imagine you being a spirit person with a pendulum?
No, mate, it'd be whizzing around like this. What's yes and no? Just go around in circles. You wouldn't know. So yeah, all right. So, is there anything you want to say, or do you want to get on to all these questions that we've suddenly?
Well, yeah. I mean, so what we've done with channeling, because it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment. Everyone's channeling.
Well, why though?
Everybody's channeling. There was a lot of people channeling anyway, because it's always sold as a quick, easy way to work with entities, right?
There's no energy payment.
People think it's inconsequential, that it won't cause them any problems. Of course, with all the I don't want to call it disclosure, because it's not really. With all the release of the classified documents, some of them,
and the videos,
with the over in the States at the moment, there has been a surge of interest in channeling. And if you cast your mind back to a few weeks ago when we talked about what may happen if disclosure was officially announced, that there would be a lot of people going, wow, this is really great, I want to go and talk to aliens. Well, that's happening. It's happening already, and there hasn't even been official government disclosure yet. So we've gathered all. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. You can't deny that it's exciting that we're, officially told, that it hasn't happened yet, that we're not alone in the universe. And a lot of people will just really want to go out there and get involved. But this is where we need to start showing high levels of discernment and exercising high levels of common sense.
Yes.
And a lot of people aren't going to stop to think about that. So
they're just going to rush into it. And the thing is that, I'll give an example. A whole group of people get together and decide to meditate and do, I don't know, C5 or something. And they all of a sudden see a light in the sky. And I've said this plenty of times in those videos. and then all of a sudden they believe it's the Arcturians. Well, probably not. It could just be a conglomerate of your own consciousness being reflected back to you through the phenomenon. And we've done videos on that as well, quite lengthy videos on the phenomenon. So you just need to type that into our channel and that video will come up. We've also done videos on the day after disclosure. So there's a lot of information out there already.
Yeah, so these questions are questions being asked by people who want to get into channeling, thinking that channeling is going to be a quick, easy way to talk to extraterrestrials.
It's the drive-through.
These are real questions. I promise, I swear, I have not made them up.
And we've seen them because we thought, wow, they're interesting.
Brace for impact.
Brace for impact. Okay.
So the first question is: does channeling involve possession?
No. No. So
it shouldn't do. Okay, we'll qualify that with it should not do.
Yeah. Okay. We need to talk about possession because possession it has a very rightly so stigma attached to it, and it's used in a biblical context. I would suggest that if someone's being influenced by a spirit person, then there's a level of that influence that's either with their free will or against their free will. If it's against their free will, then in some levels it's not exactly no good at all for the person. But if it's in conjunction with the free will of the person and they've been asked, then of course, then it's just the flow of natural information going through.
Yeah, of course, the source of that information remains in question unless the person exercises common sense and discernment and chooses to ask for some sort of evidence.
You were talking before about the Seth and Ra material. And those people that did that were doing what? So what about
quick tangent?
Yeah, so we're just jumping onto a different subject.
The Seth material, I find, about 20 years ago, I read all about the Seth material, and I'll admit my knowledge of it now is just gone out the window, mostly. But we've had a little refresh of that, and as far as I can tell, and as far as I can remember, Seth was never evidenced in the way that, say, the Zetas have evidenced themselves, or a spirit person can evidence themselves. He is just, and the word and the name Seth was ascribed by the medium Jane Roberts to the being. The being described, or the entity described itself as a consciousness that had lived many, many lives. But I don't believe any of those lives were considered to be here on Earth. So the implication is that it was not a spirit person, and not from spirit realm, but from somewhere else. But also, as far as I can recall, they never asked for any evidence of who the being responding to Seth was. So on a technicality, you could sort of argue, and it's difficult to kind of, I don't want to dismiss the material because a lot of people rate it very highly, but I can't recall any evidential information to prove that that being called Seth was not a subconscious part of the medium, be that a subconscious spirit or just a part of their consciousness or their wise mind.
Well, you look at how they went into that state, the altered state, and then that tells you whether it's channeling or mediumship.
And there are seemingly different processes that they described, from laying down to it just happening when it happened, to a purposeful session of channeling, whether it was or wasn't.
Didn't the lady called Carla Rucker?
You're talking about
the Ra material. Did she have to lay down?
I can't remember.
I can't remember. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe it was her that had to lay down, and it wasn't Jane Roberts. But the Jane Roberts stuff certainly seemed to be, in some instances, it seemed to just naturally come through, and in other instances, they seem to go through a meditative process and a trance-like or altered-like state was described by them.
The other thing is,
so
and what we haven't spoken about is the human mind. The Zetas told me in the beginning when I started with them, they said, be really careful not to let your mind take over the process. It said because your mind is very powerful, and the most powerful tool you have is your imagination. I didn't understand what they meant when they said that, of course, back then, but basically your imagination can remember what you've done. So let's say you were working with a spirit, and your mind was watching it, right? And then suddenly the spirit leaves, but the next time the spirit doesn't come, but the mind produces the information. And so there's that intermediary process between channeling and mediumship, where the mind has mirrored the effect of the spirit person.
Yeah, and see if say that process continues, that process can develop into what we call a subconscious spirit, and the level of power that subconscious spirit can
the thought form
can evolve into, is striking, because we've witnessed that with the medium.
Well, with multiple people,
the thought form presented with its own energy. So it would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to distinguish between that thought form that was absolutely energized and a spirit person.
It was very difficult. The Zetas
I didn't know the difference.
No, neither did
I thought it was a spirit
and
person.
The Zetas had to diagnose that situation.
Yeah, very interesting.
Anyway, we'll get back to the questions.
Okay, deep breath. And I'm saying these are real questions. I promise I haven't made these up. Do hag stones or witch stones, and for anyone who doesn't know what they are, they're like natural stones you can find on the beach with a little hole in, and they, you can string them up. Do they improve channeling?
I suppose if you believe they do, they can.
Yeah, power of the mind.
Power of the mind.
Power of the mind. Other than that, no. They don't have any mystical power or anything. Should I sit in a pentagram or a salt circle whilst I'm channeling for protection?
I would suggest that if you're having to sit inside a pentagram or a salt circle, you should not be channeling.
Yeah.
That means that you're coming from a space of fear.
Yeah, and also that if you notice those last two questions, they are kind of witchcrafty kind of questions. So you'd have to sort of, am I in the right frame of mind to be even doing this process?
They're ritualistic.
Very ritualistic. Yeah. Okay. What are the signs of people channeling? And this question was asked if I'm watching someone who professes to be channeling, what are the signs that they're channeling rather than in trance mediumship with spirit?
Well, I've actually taught channeling, right? So what I did was said to people, you're going to be channeling. There is no pressure on you at all. You're going to be using your own consciousness or part of your consciousness to do inspirational speaking. That takes the pressure off the person because they know that there's nothing really expected of them. You then give them a subject to talk about, and basically you can tell what part of their forward consciousness is speaking by the way that the words flow, and then if they're part of their deeper part of their mind, their wise mind comes forward, then that's where you can see that they're starting to drop down into more level of consciousness.
Yeah, we have watched multiple channelers, and I think we've said before, they have not the way they talk, the rhythm of their speech pattern, their language. There's no change. It remains exactly the same, and some of them just take a deep breath and off they go. Some of them just close their eyes and a second later they start speaking. Those people are not working with spirits.
But as long as they know that they're channeling, that's fine.
Yeah, I think quite often people believe they're working with an entity. They're calling it channeling. They believe they're channeling an entity.
Yeah.
This comes back to this interchangeable use of the word channeling with mediumship. And often it's either a spirit when they think it's an extraterrestrial,
Yeah.
or it's just their own mind, and it's no external being whatsoever. Those people, they generally just, that you can see there's no preparation there. You know, when you're bringing a spirit person through, it takes a little bit of time for them to kind of come in, get comfortable, and start speaking. That generally doesn't happen at the snap of a finger.
So the first thing that happens when a spirit person comes is that generally there'll be a colder than cold energy around the person.
Yeah.
And then what happens, and so you're still very much conscious, that's the first thing. And then, of course, the spirit people apply what's called the anesthetic. And the anesthetic then takes you to a place where you're sort of half in and half out. It's a spirit that you know, and at that point, if you don't know them, then you go, no, I'm not doing this. Thank you very much, goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
So you've still got absolute control because you've been trained. If you haven't been trained and you don't know the difference, you shouldn't be letting spirits come anyway. That's the other thing. Although spirits do come and pop in, drop in, it's called drop-ins. Once the spirit person gets much closer, there's less of you and more of them. And as they start to take over the physical form, they can then start to speak for themselves. And even at that point, the spirit person is in danger of being taken away with the medium's mind.
Yeah.
And that's why reading the short couple of pages of information by Silver Birch called Problems of Communication is a very, very good little document to read.
Yeah.
Because it shows you what can happen.
No, you can find that online.
Yeah, it's all on. That's online. That stuff. I think it's on a site called Angel Fire or something.
We should put a link to that on our website.
Yeah, because we seem to
always
reference
talk
it a
about
lot.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you channel an angel? You can't channel an angel. Angels can't and won't be channeled. An angel can specifically come externally to a human being, or they can move through the physical body of the human being and clear the body out. Now, that at that point, if it's because it's now a angel and it's not your own consciousness, it's no longer channeling. That is sort of like deep trance work. But the thing is who would say that they've always got an angel that's coming through them? You'd have to seriously question why it would happen. I've had some occasions where angels have needed to intervene, thankfully, and I appreciate it as well, to clear away some other energies that were brought to us or in a sitting space. But when they spoke with authority, and I knew that they were who they were, and it wasn't me that was doing it, because I had so little power in that moment as a medium that I knew that the angel had come to support me and the people in the room. And we don't really talk about that stuff much, but
it was a very specific circumstance.
Very, very specific circumstances. Next question.
And again, this is a real question. Is it just easier to use EVP or a Ouija board rather than do channeling?
I think Ouija boards are really good as pot plant holders.
As John Collins often reminds us.
Spirit people generally would prefer not to use a Ouija board. The Ouija board originally was brought out as a toy, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't
know. Yeah, and yeah. The problem is that with the Ouija boards is that firstly, people's own energy can drive that little thing called a planchette or whatever. The other thing is that your own fine muscle movement, what is it called, motor stuff, can also push it as well. People can subconsciously use it as well. And basically that's really not a safe space to be in anyway, because you just don't know what's going on.
I think my problem with EVP and Ouija boards specifically is that because you're relying on a device to use rather than yourself. Although in some ways that can seem like a good idea, in other ways you're giving up your power to not being able to understand the energy that's driving the planchette or or talking through the device. As a trained medium, you will begin to recognize energies that you don't want to have anything to do with. And as a trained medium with a spirit guide, you can say no. Now, if you're hand holding a little electrical EVP device of whatever sort, you don't have that, because the spirit or whatever it is interacting with that device rather than you.
And you'd have to ask yourself, at what level is that spirit operating at, in what frequency?
Yeah.
Because for them to be, if you walk into some place with a haunted house or whatever, and you've got a device in your hand, you're walking around saying, "Is there anyone here?" and all this sorts of stuff. You've got to ask yourself, okay, at what level are these things at? Because when you look at some of the TV shows that are on with these sorts of goings on, that generally the people get scared quite quickly, and they jump if there's a loud noise, and those spirits are doing that on purpose to those people because they know they're going to get a reaction from them.
Yeah, it's completely non-evidential,
Yeah.
isn't it? And people say, "Oh, well, I get my evidence through the Ouija board or through the EVP machine." It's like, okay, you have to ask yourself, what questions are you asking this? Let's just call it a spirit person for argument's sake. What questions are you actually asking of this spirit person? Are they questions that can truly evidence who they are, or is it just, are you my grandmother? Yes. Oh, that's okay then. They're my grandmother. Okay.
Yeah.
What was my grandmother's name would be better, spell it out or tell me on the device, and then tell me something about that person that only, they would know. So if anyone does do those processes, really, really, you have to be using your discernment so carefully and applying common sense to keep yourself.
But you wouldn't let
free of
anybody
mischief.
just walk into your house and start doing electrical work, would you?
A lot of people seem to do so.
No, well, they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And basically, you need a qualified and trained electrician to do that, and you expect them to have those qualifications. So the same with spirit people and mediumship, you expect those people to be trained somewhat and able to give some level of evidence.
Yeah, you wouldn't let a stranger into your house, would you? So it's that simple. It's common sense.
Next question.
How do I know it's not me I'm channeling? Asked somebody.
I think that would be evident by the level of questioning that they would get. So, give you an example. Somebody's channeling and they're asked a question that's right outside of their area of knowledge. They don't know what the answer. They've never heard of the subject before. Of course, if they're channeling, they're not going to know what the answer is.
Yeah.
They're just going to have to make something up. But spirits as well may not know, and a spirit will say, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard about that before." So it's more about Socratic questioning, and also making sure that you investigate what's being said by the person that's in a different state. Then helps you work out whether the person's channeling from their own mind, or whether that's a spirit person or other being, ET, interdimensional.
Yeah, I guess that comes back to there is a question that's said down here that says, am I safe to channel by myself? And that it kind of comes back to that, doesn't it? If you're channeling by yourself, well, who are you talking to? Where's the information going?
You could theoretically put a recorder on.
Yeah.
But
that's not going to give the chance for that Socratic questioning and evidencing to take place.
Because what happens is when you're doing mediumship, your conscious mind drops back, and then the questions that get asked are answered by the spirit person. Whereas if you're sitting by yourself, you've got to bring your own conscious mind forward, ask the question, and then drop back. You may as well be in the automatic writing field to do that. So you sit and you just write a question, and then you sit there and you wait for the answer. It's probably a much better way to do it.
Probably so.
And the best thing about that is, over the months, if not years, of doing automatic writing, you will just get to see and learn which questions and answers were the ones that you'd asked, and which answers were the ones that you got from the wise mind or the spirit person.
Yeah, eventually you'll learn to recognize the difference of energy that came around you as those questions were being answered. So this next question brings kind of back to the light languages. Is channeling light languages safe?
Well, the problem with it's the where does it originate from?
Yeah.
Um, Firstly, you don't know what's being said, and because you don't know what's being said, you don't know what energies you're bringing to yourself.
Yeah.
That's the first question. And so when we've had people that have done that, um, a lot of people say, "Well, I just sit and listen and see how it makes me feel." Well, if that's all you've got, that's all you've got. If you could just, if that's how you're going to do it, then that's fine. You can also use your intuition, or you can also, like, how, is this making me feel okay, or do I feel like I need to leave? That's the other thing. If you feel like you need to leave, then leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Go with your gut feeling.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question this person asked. I started channeling and now the spirit stays with me 24/7. Why are they my guide? Okay, so first of all, it's moved beyond channeling.
It's no longer channeling.
Yeah.
It's definitely sort of mediumship that's gone on there. And I want to be fair to the person that asked that question, because generally when you first develop as a medium, it's like a train station. There's spirits everywhere. You know it, I know it, and we know plenty of mediums. And at some point, you've got so much spirit stuff going on around you, you may as well be standing in the middle of Flinders Street Station, because it's just gets a little bit crazy. A person has to learn to. The analogy is, it's the TV's on, but you don't have to watch it, and that's the difference. If it's always on, you've got to learn when you're going to listen to it,
Yeah.
when you're going to look at it, and when you're going to completely ignore it.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to turn your mediumship off and on in the beginning. It's only as you get older and have more control over what goes on that you're able to generally completely separate spirit contact, ET contact, from your own normal life.
Now, to say and to add to that, if it truly was the person's spirit guide, that person can ask them to leave them alone, say it's bedtime and they need to get some sleep, and their guide or a well-intentioned spirit communicator, whoever they are, should respect that request, as long as the request is made with genuine intent. Because I remember when I started working with spirits, and it was exciting, and I would say, "Oh, I need to go to bed now. I need to sleep. Please, go away." But really, it was just really exciting. And actually, at night time, I could see them even more clearly, even though it was a little bit overwhelming. But when you say with intent, okay, enough's enough. I'm going to sit at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening for 1 hour. You can talk to me then, and you hold yourself to that. A respectful spirit person, be they the guide or otherwise, will go away, and they'll wait till they're assuming you're about to sit again.
The litmus test for any person that wants to channel or do any type of work is, after 60 seconds, the next day, how do I feel?
Yeah.
You cannot just jump straight into this. You've got to do it by degrees. You've got to do it slowly. If somebody for the first time in their life just goes into deep trance and they're in there for an hour, they're going to have some big issues for the next few weeks in regards to being unable to ground. And being ungrounded actually feels rubbish. It's really terrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's horrible. Yeah. Yeah. We won't even talk about the side effects of sitting for physical mediumship.
Yeah, which is quite a
Ooh.
very tough thing on your body.
Yeah.
You can read some of this stuff on the internet. Some of the old physical mediums, Leslie Flint,
Yeah.
especially Leslie Flint's they've got a website with all of
So
a lot
Leslie
of
Flint Trust.
the Leslie Flint Trust,
Mm.
and you can listen to a lot of the spirit people talking through
Yeah.
Leslie Flint.
His stuff was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Someone I know channels during C5 events. Is this okay to do? Well, that's moved so far beyond actual channeling, and I would suggest into the realms of beyond any level of common sense. I would say, personally, I would say no. It's not
When I
okay
do
to do.
C5, I don't. I want anybody to be doing any
No,
channeling.
no.
It just no.
You really are opening
You're-
a whole can of worms.
You're supposed to be in a clear space, sending out love and all universal connection and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
and not be having something being drawn into the group that can discolor the group's energy as well. So
Yeah, I suggest it leaves people very vulnerable when someone does that. Can channeling cause paranormal activity in your house if that's where you do your channeling?
no, it can cause kinetic possibilities. It can also cause static pops and snaps in the room as well.
So are you talking about if someone's just genuinely channeling their own selves?
Yeah, and they're built
Okay.
and they're populating their own etheric body. So your
Yeah,
etheric
okay.
body can make the room, you can expand into the room.
Yeah.
And then when you do that,
Yeah.
you might start hearing snapping and popping and crackling in the room.
Yeah.
But that's fairly innocuous and it's not a problem. It's just more about, I'll give you an example. So if I want to put a clock 3 meters from myself and then go into an altered state, there won't be a spirit there, but at some point I might think that I'm actually standing next to the clock. I'm still sitting in the chair, but what's happened is I've expanded my etheric body by 3 meters. And in doing so, my consciousness now finds that the clock is the center of the etheric body rather than the physical form.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next question.
I was about to say, if you suddenly had cups flying off your shelves and things breaking around the house.
That's no good.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want that.
Yeah.
And again, I'd say if that was happening in that person's house, that would be because they've moved beyond channeling. Next question.
Yeah, go for it. We're nearly finished anyway. So if there's any other questions,
yeah, start typing.
We've got about
now.
3 questions left, and then we're finished.
Okay, this is a good one. I open myself to ETs to channel.
Right.
How can I keep myself safe when I'm doing this?
Well, we use a process called staging, and staging means that you know your spirit guides really well, and that you go to them first, and then as a platform or a baseline, you can then expand your etheric field. And if you read anything in the primer or the Zeta interviews, you'll see that there's a process called heterodyning, and then of course heterodyning then moves a person to a different space where they're able to be in what's called a compressed space, and now it's getting all very technical. And then of course that's where the beings can be. So that's why we wrote the books, and the books are free. But if you want to get a printed one, you can buy a printed one as well for the cost. But that's why actually getting real contact is so important, because you're either sitting there wasting your time and deluding yourself, or you're actually got real contact, and then you've got to ask yourself, well, what am I going to do with this contact when they're the ones that are in control? That's what it comes down to. So you're going to find out a lot of this stuff after disclosure, when there's more disclosure happening all the time. And people have always said in a lot of the videos, it's not what's happening with the disclosure from humans, it's what happens when the race is disclosed. There's the big gotcha right there. Once a race discloses to the humanity, there's no going back. And there's actually no going back right now from what's going on the disclosure process. And there's like multiple videos that have been put out, but there's no real explanation as to what they are. And people are actually questioning, well, okay, are they human technology? Is it extraterrestrial technology, interdimensional? And we're hearing a lot of people talking about interdimensionals. They're saying they're interdimensionals. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you're only saying they're interdimensional because you don't know the difference.
They don't
They
understand
could
how
be
the technology
using
works.
space-time compression like at the aerial school phenomenon, where the kids were able to see the beings walking on the craft, but they were all in a distortion. And so if they're using that type of process, space-time compression, there's an article on it on our website if you search for that, compression. What will happen is that they'll go in and out of phase. And going in and out of phase means they go from physical to non-physical and back again.
Yeah.
And it looks like that they're interdimensional.
They're not.
They're not.
So what was the short answer to that? If somebody's sitting there and saying, I invite all the extraterrestrials to come and channel through me, you can't really.
It won't happen.
Well, A, it probably is really not going to happen, but B, if it really did happen,
Well,
you're not going to be able to keep yourself safe, because it's like standing on your doorstep, opening the front door and yelling with a microphone, everybody can come into my house. It doesn't matter who you are, just come on in. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, next question.
All right.
I read that I should raise my vibration before I start to channel. Should I?
I think that anything that takes you out of your day-to-day energy and puts you in a very calm and loving space is a very healthy thing to do for yourself. And, you can even call that mindfulness.
Yeah. I think if everybody did that 2 or 3 times a day, the world would be a much nicer place.
Of course.
Yeah. If I only invite good entities to channel, will this stop the bad entities from coming?
You see, that the underlying premise of that question is fear.
Yeah.
And so if that's what you think, then you shouldn't be doing anything.
Yeah. So basically no.
No.
The short answer is no. Now this was an interesting one. Are messages from entities the same as downloads?
That's such an interesting question, and the problem is that it's a technical question. So a download can be symbolic in nature, and there's no specific information given with it, but you've had the download. Right? A download can also be a whole lot of information, but with the information is an explanation. So there's multiple types of downloads.
Yeah. I've only experienced it 4 or 5 times, maybe max, and they've happened so fast. I've only just caught it in my mind as it's come in, but for that split fraction of a second, I've had this incredible understanding of a particular concept that then when I try to repeat what I've just understood, I can't do it. I don't have the words to do it, and it goes.
It does.
I wonder if downloads are actually meant for the construct. You know what I mean? Like, are they meant? If you're not if you can't retain the information, was it ever really meant to be retained?
It may have been seen by the construct as it came through, but then filtered into the higher self. So the information was for the higher self. And when we talk about construct, we say that our minds sit inside an etheric field, and that etheric field keeps us grounded. Okay? But the higher self does not sit inside the etheric field, because the higher self is the observer of who you are.
The last question I had was, is it okay to sit by myself and channeling. That was the last one we came
And
across.
we've answered that question,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, it is, but what's the point? And you can't really probe for any evidential information if you do it. So don't bother.
So, as I said before, if you've got any questions, you can leave the comments on the videos.
Yeah.
But you can also do some research on the zetaconnection.com. It has a search feature as well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of articles and books and things on there. And the search feature actually goes through those blog posts and other things and brings up the answers to questions as well.
There's also six books up there that as PDF downloads you can download, knowing you're not going to download anything else. And they're the primer, they're the interviews, there's the cosmology, there's...
Which is the book that has the toroidal information about craft?
Isn't that Zeta Science for Humans?
Have a look at that book, because you're going to start to see them talk about anti-gravitic systems and how they allow craft inside spheres or toroidal structures to move. And William Trinite and I have been talking about this for years because of the information from the Zetas and how they told us that they move their own craft.
Yeah. So you guys wrote a couple of articles about those things.
Yeah.
And some of those articles formed chapters of the Zeta Science for Humans book, I think.
Yeah.
They might be in the newer edition of the primer, and they are definitely some standalone articles. I think there's 15 standalone articles that didn't make chapters of any of the books. Again, they're all there as PDF downloads. Just follow the links.
All right. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks.
Oh, okay, so we're having next week off.
Having a break next week, and we'll see you the following week after.
I hope you found it interesting.
See you later. Bye-bye. Get that down there.